Good afternoon. Oh, excuse me. Good afternoon. I love these occasions. They're like special markers along life's way. A milestone seen in the distance some years ago and then finally achieved. I too graduated, just like you, in this same hall, as was said before, over 40 years ago. However, I remember very little of that ceremony, and I remember nothing at all of what the guest speaker said, so we'll see how we go today. And I retained only one grainy black and white photograph of that ceremony, so I'm hopeful that today you'll make a better go of it than that. What I wish to talk to you about today is innovation, problem solving, creativity, and that very hackneyed expression, thinking outside the square. Everyone tells you to be innovative, you must think outside the square. In my engineering firm, where we actively promote innovation, we had a cute variation on that, and we'd say, we're different, we're innovative, we think outside the circle. But what I want to talk to you about today is the impossibility of thinking outside the square, or circle for that matter. The square, of course, refers to one's own personal box, our personal comfort zone, given to us primarily by our loving parents and reinforced and bolstered by life's experience and one's peers. Some of us have larger boxes, some smaller, some irregular shaped, some narrow and corridor-like. And as we proceed along life's way, our personal box becomes more rigid, stronger. The walls become thicker. We become more fixed in our views and opinions. Experiences like overseas travel and working in foreign countries are invaluable because they broaden one's outlook. They expand the box, push back its walls, and for a time making them softer and even permeable, but it's still a box. No matter how hard you try, thinking and solution finding must, by definition, always come from inside your box, inside your knowledge, inside your range of experiences. It's a little like trying to jump over your knees. The higher you jump, the higher your knees. The knees are always there before you. So what I want to propose to you today is that to be innovative and inventive in your career, to really solve problems in a fresh and interesting way, to invent and design the new, it is necessary not to think outside the box, but to be outside the box. This is the only place, in my experience, where something new is possible to appear. This is the zone of true creativity. So what does it mean to be outside the box? How does one begin to venture into that space? Well, in my career and in my life, I've found 5 practical ways to help achieve being outside the box. The first way is curiosity. As a child, I was constantly getting into trouble because I would always break my presents and gifts. It wasn't because I was destructive, it was because I wanted to see how strong they were. I wanted to test them. Often I would have broken most of my Christmas gifts before the end of the day, and my father, of course, would give me a hiding for that. I remember once being fascinated when I visited a favourite auntie. She had a bowl of artificial fruit made of hollow wax, and I couldn't stop myself testing each piece of fruit with my finger to see how thick the wax was. So I thought I was quite clever. I carefully rearranged them all so the holes weren't showing, but as we were leaving, the whole pile collapsed onto the floor. Curiosity is a wonderful thing. Albert Einstein said, "I have no special talents." Can you believe that? I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. The second way that I've found is adventure. I left Australia as soon as I had saved up enough from university. Myself and a mate took the Trans-Siberian Express across Russia, which really was an adventure because in the 1970s this was the great enemy, the great communist state, the great Cold War. Of course, we had many adventures, but I would like to relate just one to you today. Travelling in the middle of the night as we were leaving Russia, our whole train was detoured off the main track and onto a siding, and the siding was surrounded by blinding searchlights. And as a platoon of soldiers advanced towards the train, all of us passengers eagerly craned our necks out the windows to see who were the poor unfortunates who were going to be taken away, who had been found out. Great excitement as the platoon of soldiers came into our carriage, hobnailed boots striding down the corridor, stopping outside our compartment, and then thrusting open our door. At this point, my mate was suddenly violently ill and threw up on the floor. They looked at both of us and beckoned me to follow. I was surrounded and marched off across a misty, stubbled field of wheat into the darkness. Here I was met in a wooden shed by an officer, and he sat me down and proceeded to question me. And what he wished to know was about our state of health. We'd both been ill in Moscow, and apparently they wanted to check up on our health so that we wouldn't give Russia a bad name when we were leaving. So after I reassured him that we were very, very fit, notwithstanding the vomit on the train floor, I was taken back to the train and we were allowed on our way. So that was a great adventure. It certainly opened my eyes to all sorts of things. But adventures can happen much closer to home, and that's the real point. Taking up, for example, amateur dramatics is an adventure, and it takes one out of one's comfort zone. Speaking at Toastmasters, these sorts of things can offer you this adventurous experience. In our practice, we also try to look for adventure in our designs. For example, one large block of apartments on the harbour foreshore. In that old building, we were able to completely cut out a concrete beam 600 millimetres deep on every floor and vastly improve the view. And we could do that by gluing very, very thin Kevlar strips on the underside of the slab, and thereby taking away this very large concrete beam. And the third way that I want to talk about being outside the box is art. And perhaps the architecture students might relate to this in particular. Personally, I've found that's the single most effective way to be outside the box. I left Australia knowing nothing about art or architecture. I was a rugby-playing, beer-swilling, right-wing, innocent abroad. So you might be able to understand something of my amazement and disconcertion when I suddenly came across St Basil's Cathedral. For those of you who have not seen St Basil's Cathedral, it's an unbelievable collection of brightly coloured spires, striped onion roofs, stairs and twisted shapes, and it forms the northern boundary of the extremely dour Red Square in the heart of Moscow. I was so perplexed when I saw this building. I'd never seen a photograph of it before. I walked around the back to see if it was a visiting circus, if it was just a hoarding. But no, it had been built in the 1560s. Picasso famously said, "Art is a lie that lets you see the truth." I'm still shaken by that experience of St Basil's. What is the truth behind the juxtaposition of this joyous riot of religious expression situated in the grim grey heart of the Russian nation? And each time I visit an art gallery, I leave feeling somehow full, replete. digesting something that I do not understand, a question, something outside me, outside my control. I find that art takes me outside my box. The fourth way is working with others. I've found in my working life that the most creative, satisfying and rewarding times is when I'm sitting down in a room talking to others about a common problem. To discuss a building and to create the building verbally between you is a wonderful experience. Recently, following this method of working with others, we designed and built a steel trebuchet, which is a medieval catapult, for the FM radio station Nova. And with it, we were able to throw a Volkswagen 76 metres. And so we broke a Guinness Book of Records. And perhaps some of you heard that on the Nova radio station. But working with a team of people to create amazing structures like that and to have adventure, it's almost magical. It's almost as if the creativity occurs in the air between you. Not one person could claim ownership of the design of such a building or such a structure. It just appeared. None of us could say, well, I did that. It was a combined effort. And because the creativity was shared, it appears almost as if some other force might be present, some other thing that's outside me. And this leads to the fifth and final way that I want to just briefly touch on, and that's the way of meditation or contemplation or prayer, if you like. I'm not going to say much about this because it's such a personal issue. It's belief in something higher, belief in something that is and must be outside any box. But unfortunately, and almost invariably, this something becomes located at the very core of many people's boxes. And then it becomes extremely rigid indeed, leading to fundamentalism, all kinds of bigotry, hatred, terrorism and war. But solitary time spent in contemplative meditation can lead to a place where the inside becomes the outside, where space, place and time cease to have their usual confines. So in concluding, what I've tried to examine today together with you is this idea of not thinking outside the box, because I don't believe it's possible to do so, but being outside the box. And there was 5 ways: curiosity, adventure, art, working with others, and a spiritual journey, if you like. And how do we know when we reach this state of creativity or this state of being outside the box? It really varies in my experience depending on which of those ways or techniques that you're following. But there's a certain slight discomfort. There's a certain being a little bit unsure, a question, looking for something, trusting in something else a little, not being so sure of yourself. You don't need to become a thrill seeker and take great risks. You don't have to go far at all. Just as far as the walls of one's own square. Push a little, have a look over the top, reach out, jump over if you can. And in my experience, this process is what leads to the greatest innovations, the best technical solutions, and the most wonderful creations. Well, I've had the most wonderful career starting from this university, and what I wish for all of you is a most satisfying and rewarding career in the years ahead. Thank you for listening.